All right, so I look at this pattern, and I look at this question. How many squares are being added to each figure? So I look at figure 1, and there are, okay, pause, resume, 10. All right, so I look at figure 1, and I see that there are 4 squares, okay? I look at figure 2, I see that there are 6 squares. I look at figure 3, there are 8 squares and 10 squares in figure 10. So how much is it growing by? It's adding plus 2 every time. So I want you to write plus 2 in that first box. All right. You're recording now. Okay, how many squares will be in figure 10? I would write the rest of the figure numbers. So I would start with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, and I'm going to make a little table. So the top numbers are my figure numbers, and then the bottom numbers is going to be what? How many squares there are. So from figure 4 to figure 5, I'm going to add 2, so I'm going to end up with 12. Figure 6, I'm going to add 2 more. It's going to have 14, then 16, 18, 20, and 22 squares in figure 10. Okay? 22 squares in figure 10. So how many squares will be in figure 100? A lot. Okay? Do you think that we can just go ahead and multiply by 10? Okay, so if I took figure 5, right, and it had 12 squares, figure 10, we're going with that idea, if we multiply by 2 from figure 5 to figure 10, what should have we gotten? 24. So can we automatically multiply? No, so I'm going to say we're going to skip this and come back to it. Okay? And let's look at letter D. Okay? Letter D says, how can you find out how many squares will be in any figure? Okay? Any figure. So my idea is, well, let's find the pattern, right? Let's figure out what pattern. Yes, it's adding, but if I want to figure out for the millionth figure, I don't want to add 2 every single time, right? That's going to take forever, and I don't have enough fingers for that, and that's going to take a long time. So let's figure out how many squares there are by figuring out the pattern. So I'm going to look at the relationship from figure 1 to 4 squares. Okay, so from figure 1 to 4 squares, I can add 3, right? 1 plus 3 is 4. So I'm going to try that same pattern, adding 3 to the figure number. So figure 2 plus 3 is 5. So does that pattern work? No, so adding 3 doesn't work. So let's try multiplying. Okay, figure 1 times 2 is 2. Then how many more do I need to get to 4? 2 more. So we did 2 times the figure number plus 2. So let's try that again. 2 times 2 is, plus 2 is 6. So does that work? Yes. Okay, let's try it for figure 3. 3 times 2 plus is what? 6 plus 2 is 8. So that works. So what I'm going to write in this square is, I can't even reach it, the figure number times 2 plus 2. That was the pattern. And I'm going to put in parentheses, pattern. That's what we're looking for in letter D. Let's move on now to our equation. Can you write an equation for this pattern? Well, that's kind of a yes-no. Well, what do we need in an equation? Variables and an equal sign and plus, minus, divide, multiply, right? Well, we already have our multiply and add, so let's name our variables. Because right now, figure number is not a variable. That's a description, right? So we're going to say x and y. Okay, what is x going to be equal to? The figure number. So x equals the figure number, and y equals the, what do you think? How many squares there are, right? Okay, number of squares. Okay, so now let's translate our pattern, because an equation is just a pattern, right? It's a rule, but it's just really mathy, more or less. Okay, so let's take our pattern and translate it into an equation. Okay, so I'm going to write figure number, which is x, times 2 plus 2 equals y. Okay, that's exactly what my pattern said, but I translated it into an equation. X times 2 plus 2 equals y. Okay, and I'm going to rewrite it this way. Y equals 2x plus 2. I want you to write it both ways. That way you can see that these two equations, the first and the second, are exactly the same information. How would we figure out how many squares were in figure 100? Yes, sir. Yeah. So we could do 2. Okay, so we could do 2 times the figure number, which is 100, and then add 2. So 2 times 100 is 200, plus 2 is 202. Okay? All right, any further questions? This is our work for problem number 2. Okay? Any questions? You good?